Well, I would say that Boeing has gone from bad to worse lately, but that ship has sailed. So I had to get out the thesaurus to find a word worse than, well, worse. But the thesaurus suggested the word Boeing. So yeah, that's kind of how it's going for Boeing anymore. But in a breaking story that is at least just as sad as it is at worst horrific, a former Boeing manager turned whistleblower who raised concerns about Boeing's quality standards sadly was found dead in South Carolina Saturday, 9 March. 62-year-old John Barnett was found in his hotel parking lot in Charleston, South Carolina just days after he started giving a formal deposition in a legal action against Boeing. The Charleston County Coroner's Office said in a statement that Barnett had died from what appears, and note the word appears, to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Barnett's attorney, Brian Knowles, called the passing of his client tragic, and went on to express doubt about the circumstances of his death, making sure to call the self-inflicted wound cops are calling alleged. Well, let the conspiracy theories on the interwebs begin, because hoo boy, here we go. But what makes this story rife for conspiracy theorists is that Barnett was literally in the middle of an active whistleblower lawsuit against Boeing, his former employer of 32 years, as he was alleging retaliation for sounding the alarm on what he characterized as cutting corners on the assembly lines for their planes. Barnett's lawyer told TMZ that this is a drum that John Barnett had been beating for a long time, and he even went on TMZ TV Live recently to address issues that Boeing 737 MAX aircraft have been experiencing lately. In an interview, Barnett said he wasn't surprised by the mishap, alleging he'd seen Boeing turn a blind eye to safety concerns for years. He also told TMZ that Boeing 737 MAX aircraft being given the green light to fly again so soon after the Alaska Airlines incident was quite alarming, suggesting the plane might be unsafe. Boeing released a statement saying, "We are saddened by Mr. Barnett's passing and our thoughts are with his family and friends." Barnett worked for about 32 years at Boeing before retiring in 2017, and for a time was a quality manager at the Charleston manufacturing plant for the 787 Dreamliner, where Barnett said he observed worrying signs of slipping standards at Boeing, saying that Boeing was rushing to assemble its aircraft. In 2019, he told the New York Times, "I haven't seen a plane out of Charleston yet that I'd put my name on saying it's safe and airworthy." Barnett was due to continue his deposition in a case Barnett had filed called an AIR 21 case against Boeing, saying it undermined his career because he had raised safety concerns at the Charleston plant. Barnett's lawyer, Brian Knowles, said the former Boeing manager was supposed to report for the third day of his deposition on Friday. He was questioned by Boeing's lawyers on Thursday and then cross-examined by Knowles on Friday, but didn't show up or respond to calls on Saturday. So Knowles, Barnett's lawyer, asked the hotel to check on his client. Sadly, that's when he was found in his vehicle. In 2020, John sat down for an interview with Australia's ABC News, discussing with them many of the complaints he brought to Boeing's attention during his tenure with the 787 Dreamliner project. I'd like to show you some clips from that interview, but ABC Australia is notorious for copyright strikes, which I have been a victim of already, but I'll tell you what he told them. During that interview, John said that he would never step foot on the Dreamliner, nor would he let his family, saying because he, quote, knows what's under the skin. "I know what's lying around out there," he said, "and it's scary." John had already been a Boeing employee for 20 years before he transitioned to South Carolina to work on the Dreamliner project. John said the first problem that caught his attention was that Boeing was leaving small metal shavings, leftover pieces of metal, that if they came in contact with electrical wires posed a serious fire risk. He said all these metal slivers falling down into the wiring and the electrical equipment, and when you mix metal slivers with electrical components is a recipe for disaster. He also said he discovered a major defect in the 787's oxygen mask system. He said that when the masks are actually deployed, at least 25% of the masks fail to work, to which John insisted back in 2020, that means that 25% of oxygen systems or masks in operation on the 787 today won't work properly when needed. John Barnett also alleged that damaged parts were being used to build new 787s instead of being thrown away as the FAA requires. John said if they had defective parts but didn't have new replacements in stock, they would just simply install the defective part on the airplane in order to meet the plane's delivery deadlines. He said he raised every red flag he could possibly raise to Boeing management, but after they failed to listen to him, John said that's when he decided to take the information outside of Boeing and filed a whistleblower complaint with the FAA. For their part, the FAA said they took John's complaint seriously and took them to Boeing, and Boeing assured the FAA that they would make sure the corrections were made to the process. However, John said he was skeptical that ever really happened. John retired in 2017, but then began legal action against Boeing, the very process of which he was in the middle of when he supposedly ended his own life. But he said as a whistleblower, Boeing harassed him, outed him, and this is a practice that Boeing seemingly continues to engage in till this day. Also in that interview, John told ABC News that there's a rule of thumb in aircraft production that it takes about 8 to 10 years for a defect to become visible on any new airplane. So he said since the first 787 delivery was in late 2012, he was very concerned that soon we would start seeing these defects begin to appear on the 787. And as if right on cue, this week indeed, a Boeing 787 suffered an in-flight emergency that injured 50 passengers when suddenly passengers aboard LATAM Airlines flight LA800 from Sydney, Australia, were about an hour from its destination of Auckland, New Zealand, when all of a sudden the plane just dropped out of the sky. Passengers speaking to local media described seeing people being thrown to the ceiling and then falling to the floor, as those on board felt a sudden roller coaster-like drop, as if the plane were taking a nosedive, before the plane quickly leveled out again. A spokesperson for LATAM described the incident as a technical event. During the Auckland-bound flight aboard the Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner carrying 263 passengers and 9 flight and crew, Flight 800 stopped in Auckland before heading to its final destination of Santiago, Chile. The airline confirmed in a statement to the Washington Post that 10 passengers and 3 cabin crew members were taken to the hospital. By Tuesday morning local time, Health New Zealand said it was treating 4 people admitted overnight with a range of moderate injuries but who were in stable condition. But of course, a spokesperson for Boeing said we are working to gather more information about the flight and will provide any support needed by our customer. Boeing has, of course, because as many of you, my Maximus family watch the channel know, in recent months has come under scrutiny over safety concerns in its 737 MAX planes after an Alaska Airlines flight in January had a door plug blow out of its fuselage while in the air. But in more breaking bad Boeing news this very week, the New York Times reported on Monday, citing a set of presentation slides the Times saw, that Boeing had recently failed 33 out of 89 FAA product audits for its 737 MAX production. According to the documents seen only by the Times because they're still confidential, Boeing has, among other nefarious accusations, been accused of using Dawn dishwashing detergent as a lubricant on aircraft. Wait, what? Well, okay, hold on a second. Full disclosure, Dawn is really the greatest stuff on earth, and I've used it as a lubricant from time to time. Wait, that didn't sound right. No, I mean a lubricant for nuts and screws, and, well, that's not helping either. Anyway, moving on. Add to that the 787 New Zealand mishap, the 737 MAX de-icing fires, and now stuck Boeing MAX rudders, and the new plague of wheels falling off airplanes all over the place. It feels like we are facing the end times for Boeing and aviation in general.
So you know about my situation?
Yes, we are all well aware.
These are the end times for Dewey Crow. The only choice I have left is how I punch out.
Yeah, poor Dewey Crow. It ended badly for him on Justified. Seems like Boeing is headed in the same direction, though. So now we just wait. I know many will leap to the conclusion that John Bennett's passing may not have been at his own hand, and the Illuminati may have done it. And I'm not going to argue with you if you believe that, because I'll believe just about anything at this point. But sometimes, sadly, and all too often, the truth is what it is. But either way, there's no denying that Boeing Corporation has taken yet another life. No, don't misunderstand me. I'm not accusing Boeing of a crime against Mr. Burnett. Not one punishable by a court of law. However, if you apply enough pressure to any man or woman, sometimes there is just so much pressure they can take. And I'll just leave it there. So please meet me down below and we'll talk about it in the comment section. I'd love it also if you'd please hit that like button and subscribe. And hey,
let's be careful out here.